Hello. I was watching a random ass video by a really cool guy that makes content on VOD, TMUX and all that. He's hot too. I don't remember what he's called. But long story short, he showed off this really cool plugin called Oil.nvim, and it's like a file manager plugin effectively for NeoVim. I'm sure you've seen them, things like NerdTree, NeoTree, NetRW, and stuff like that. They're not usually the best way to go around files, but they're really nice in kind of figuring out the file structure, or maybe getting an overview of some kind. They're really neat. I feel like even if you're not going to use them very often, they're a very good addition to your NeoVim setup. So I'm like, alright, whatever, I'm watching this video. And then he opens with the main capability of Oil.nvim. You can edit your files the same exact way you would be editing a normal buffer. Can you imagine the power behind that? It is exactly as good as it sounds. Here I have Oil actually opened. You can see this because of the file type is Oil. I'm currently in this plugin and has a listing of all the files that I have in this directory. You can see that this is not like a special interface. It's not floating. It's not using some special magic. Well, I guess the only magic that's being used here is these cool symbols, but they're not real text. If you see me say 0, I don't go beyond. I don't go to the left. So they're there, but not really. So this is just a normal buffer. This fucking might as well be a file, but however, you can see that it's a directory that I have opened here. So how do I do anything in terms of files? Like, how do I add a new one? Exactly how I would add a new line in a buffer, in a file. New file.txt. I save. For me it's space, but more usually it will be this. Blammo. Here you have your new file. Isn't that incredible? I added a new file simply by like doing what I would usually, by using the same exact approaches in editing a normal buffer. You know what this means? I can say something like fucking 50 file-1.txt and then go here, do G Control A, blammo, I created 5 files named nicely. Now I could of course express this in my shell. It's a bit better in Bash because it has ranges. Fish technically also has ranges, but that's a different discussion that I might get into. I could do it like this, but see, I had to go somewhere else to do this action. While here I don't need to. So this is fucking huge. The main good thing about this is I don't need to learn any new different remaps, hotkeys, whatever else to navigate this thing. It is as natural as it can be because it already uses all of the keybinds that I'm already using. Now what's extra great it makes use of any other plugins that you might have for just text editing. Here I just used a leap. So this is incredible. And this is incredible to such a big degree that it's now my main file manager. For the longest time I used to have Ranger installed. And I say installed rather than, oh, I use Ranger, is because I never really got into Ranger that much. I configured like a thing or two. I read a bit of the docs. I actively tried to get into it, but for some reason it didn't really take off for me. Now I think the reason why is because it uses a fucking new, different ideology, approach, mnemonics, so on and so forth. Now, of course, it can do a lot of cool things, but it does all of those cool things in a different way than what I'm used to. While in Oil, all I need to know is how would I do this change as if it's text, because currently it just is. What if I just, I don't know, wanted to rename all of these files to blech? I can. I mean, it probably will say an error, like, oh, actually, can't all be the same file name or something. But the idea is still the same. And I can just delete a line to delete a file. I'm not going to do that. I haven't finished this episode yet. And then the even cooler part is its memory. It remembers. Actually, before we go forward, let me do this little magic so I can see both at the same time. Yeah. So it remembers. What I mean by that? Say I yank this line, right? And then, whoa, what did I just do here? I went up a directory. We can then go back. So, first of all, what happens here is that you see one directory per screen. You see all the directories and files in there, rather than it being a tree which you see all at once. Personally, I think both make sense, even to the extent of maybe using both, like a tree and this style, this netrw style. I think you could benefit from using two types at the same time. If Oil.nvim wasn't this fucking good. It is so incredibly good that I simply uninstalled NeoTree. I think I've shown it off on stream before and I've used it. And it's good. But you can see from my voice that I'm not like excited about it. It's kind of like watching free run and also saying it's good. Like, I'm not excited about it whatsoever. I dropped that show, by the way. So we copied that file some time ago. I didn't just try to waste time to make it forget. That's not a thing. It obviously won't forget. So just paste save once again, and it copies that file. It copies that fucking file. How? I have no fucking clue. Maybe I should like look at the source code, because there are some things that I think I could improve upon in this plugin. But then again, I don't think it gets updated very often. Regardless, it somehow magically understands that this file that I copied is not just a new file that I'm calling this. No, I'm moving that file, or in this case, copying And if I deleted, went, pasted, it would be moved instead. Then you might have noticed, let's create a new file and delete it. Well, I guess, yeah. It didn't ask me for permission this time because I just created it and the file is empty. It's not the default behavior, by the way. By default, it will always ask you. But long story short, when you delete, oh, here it is. What? That's strange. So you can see here that it asks trash. So you can make it so instead of deleting files, it sends them to the trash instead. Once again, not default behavior. You have to opt into it. Let's press OK, or I guess O to mean OK. And alright, we trashed something rather than deleting, which is good enough. I guess we could like copy this current, oh, I guess we couldn't. Well, no, it still works. Then we could like do this to go to this directory. I'm kind of cheating though, because my tools are really fucking good. My configuration is amazing. Usually you couldn't like, oh, let's fucking copy this path. That's not usually a mapping people have, I think. Well, at least I've never heard of people having it. And then most people aren't using fish, or maybe don't know about being able to edit their command buffer. Regardless, doesn't really matter. So we got here, most importantly, and I'm like, all right, right. And now we can trash restore. So we can restore this temp file that we just trashed, right? So this is already like not exactly smooth, but it is still useful, because if I delete an anime episode, for example, and I'm like, oh wait, actually I haven't finished it, I can easily restore it. But you might say, you sound suspicious, as if this is not the actual solution. And if you've been watching me for some time, you might have realized this sooner than later. Because no, you don't have to. Just press GT. That might not be the default. No, actually, I think that's the default key map, or maybe G capital T, but regardless, here it is. And I think I actually don't remember. I think I delete it, go back by pressing GT once again and paste it. Yeah, and here it is. Actually, before I fucking forget, with trash, it was highlighted in red. But here, it has an underline, a blue underline under restore. At first, I thought that this was some sort of bug, because it looks really ugly and makes me feel like, oh, this word is an error. But no, that's just the default highlighting for some odd fucking reason. Why? I don't know. That's really strange. So let's actually recolor it, because I'll forget about it until infinity. How do we recolor it? I guess I'm kind of jumping ahead a bit. Let's go to dot files, then go to oil.nvim. Yeah, I'm jumping ahead a bit. I'll go over the configuration options a bit later. But all of the colors that oil uses are actually exposed in highlight groups. So we can search for oil highlights. So this would usually be H oil highlights blammo, and here you have all of the highlights that it uses. Pretty neat. So now we can say oil restore, copy this, then do vim API and vim set highlight group 0. I don't know what that means, but it supposedly needs to be 0. Blammo, and now we specify a color instead of the underline. We specify a color, purple, and by the way, the format is exactly what you would expect. It is, let me try to remember what it is, D3869B. So that's the format of the colors. Or you can just say something like purple, which I think takes it from your color scheme, but I'm not sure. I just like specifying colors in hex. Then, if you want to still keep the underlines, you do underline true. But to get an overview on nvim set highlight, I recommend just reading the docs on it in a very similar fashion. Nvim set highlight blammo. If you want to learn more about how to set colors. So, boom, now it's purple. I think that color makes sense. Right, so I don't actually want to restore it. I deleted it for a good reason. Purge, how would I... What color would I even use for this? I actually don't know. Purge. I'm just guessing here, by the way. I don't know if it's called that. If I also name it red, let's make trash orange and this red. I think that makes sense. Yes. So purge, I assume, what it means is that delete the file from the trash also. Yeah. Another thing that I really appreciate about Oil is, first of all, let me show you how to make a directory. I've shown you how to make a file. To make a directory, you end with a slash. I don't remember it being explained anywhere. I just kind of guessed it. So I feel like it's going to be helpful to know. So oftentimes in file managers, you can't actually see the full path if it's too long. I have a hotkey on meta semicolon y that downloads the YouTube video, the link to which is in my clipboard. And it automatically titles the file with the title that's used for the actual YouTube video, which means that it may easily get very long as a title. Well, since Oil is just a NeoVim buffer with some special rules here and there, you get to decide whether you see the entire title or not. Personally, the title of a file can be fucking 5 lines long. I don't care. I want to see it entirely. Entirely. I don't want to miss anything. I want to see the entire title. In Ranger, I'm pretty sure it's abbreviated. No, I think it's abbreviated on the end. So once there isn't enough space, you're done. Like, you can't read it all. But with Oil, I can decide that, actually just wrap the title. I still want to see it fully. It's not the default, once again. Because I understand that some people might actually prefer it to go away. For it to be shorter, like this. So yeah, I'm in love with it now. And I uninstalled Ranger. I don't use it anymore whatsoever. And instead of it, I use Oil. I'll come to how I make it feasible. But first, let's actually go over the config options. This. We'll come back to this later. And so I don't forget, let me write it in. Default file explorer. First of all, you can add more columns. Let me immediately show you. Oh, forgot. Oil YouTube fork. So we already discussed that. Wait, we have not discussed this. Right. So you can just straight up delete a word and boom, you just rename the file. It is as simple as that. Which is like incredible on incredible. Kinda annoyingly, you can't then undo your change for some reason, which is a bit strange. But it's not a big deal. Maybe there is a config option for that specifically, who knows? So in a similar fashion, if you change the permissions, it will be exactly what you think it is. It will change the permission on the file. So instead of chmodding plus xing it, you could instead just say this, I think, if I remember correctly. But I might be remembering incorrectly though. Like, it's the same system. You're just changing some characters in a file, and it's just as simple as that. I found that I do prefer chmodding because I need to change 3 separate characters, and that's a bit annoying. So that's why I have it crossed out. There are other columns in there also for modification time, for size, I think. Let's try to look at them. Oil columns? Yes. Let's look at what columns it has. Wait, really? You're not gonna... Oh. Columns can be specified as a string to use the default arguments, or as a table to pass parameters. Okay, so we have type. So whether it's file directory link, cool but kind of useless, gonna be honest, because it's already pretty obvious. Like, oh yeah, I can see that this is a directory. And by the way, by default, it highlights the directory titles also in some color. For me it was green, I think, or cyan, something of that nature. But once again, I can see the slash and I can see this, so there is like really no need. So I disable it. Icon is pretty neat. I quite like it. It makes everything look much better. Then size of the file, permissions of the file that we looked at, creation time, modification, access, and birth time. So those are all of what you can set. It's not particularly expansive. It doesn't include, I guess, the cooler stuff, not gonna lie. That might be there. I'm not even sure what it would be. Maybe some Git integration or something of that nature would be pretty cool. But it's plenty. It's very much plenty. Because of a certain mapping that I will talk about later. So here I mentioned that you can make it wrap instead of truncating, and blammo, that's how you do it. Here's the setting that makes it so you delete to trash rather than permanently. And here's the setting that made it so I didn't get a confirmation prompt. So skip confirm for simple edits. I don't quite remember the rule that it follows to figure out what's a simple edit and what isn't. But I remember it being reasonable. Yeah. Then in view options, I really recommend setting show hidden to true, because by default, I think strangely enough, it will not show dot files, so files that start with a dot, which is a convention that I quite dislike. Probably because I do configuration so much that I usually want to see dot files, because those dot files are those that I intend to be working with, rather than some configuration options that I never want to see. The usual situation, for sure, if you're like working on a Rust project, for example, you don't exactly care to see the git ignore. You don't exactly care to see the Rust FMT. You probably just want to look at the files. So it usually makes sense, but considering just how much configuration I do, I usually want to see dot files. So I have it set to that. You can also set a mapping that we'll get to that toggles whether it shows hidden files or not. I don't have a mapping for it because if I see them already, I'm probably fine. Because like the thing about it is, if I want to look for something in specific, I literally just fucking search for it. I can even use Telescope to search for it, like fuzzy search, blammo. So it's not exactly filtering, I guess, but it's filtering in the sense that I can get to what I want very easily. So I didn't find it useful to have a mapping for this, but you very much can. I'm pretty sure there is a default binding for that, and it should be g dot. This I have no clue what this means. And is always hidden is a function that decides which things are, well, always hidden. By default, it will show you the dot dot directory, which means the parent directory. If you use ls dash capital, no, if you use ls dash lowercase a, you will always see the dot directory and the dot dot directory, which is very useless. Like, I know that every directory has a dot directory, which basically just means, yeah, this is a directory. No shit, wherever I'm going to be is always going to be a directory. I am always going to see that dot. And similarly with the dot dot directory, which only doesn't exist. Now let's actually check if this is true. ls dash lowercase. Oh, so even the fucking root has this directory. Have you seen this bullshit? Yeah, like even the single directory that does not have a parent, as far as I know, even this one has the parent directory file, which is actually a hard link that links to the parent directory. It's pretty cool how it works, but I genuinely do not need to see it like ever, honestly. So that's why I simply remove it. And similarly, but differently, I never care to see the .git directory. Some .filed directories I might want to look at and interact with. Like, I could possibly see myself interacting with node modules, because I heard from horror stories that sometimes you have to, which is terrifying. I hope that's false, and I hope I misremember. But .git, I will basically never get to, or at the very least, I will never get to from a file tree or a file viewer. If I really want to get to there, I'll just say, I'll just use Telescope for this, like, oh, .git commit hooks. Commit, no, you get the deal. Like, I'll actually go to the file that I want to get to. Let's get to the mappings. Oil does not automatically refresh what you see in there, and it doesn't even do that once you save. You have to explicitly tell it to refresh, which I set to be Alt-D. This makes sense considering that you might get some conflicts if you try to write and refresh at the same time. I tried making an auto command that would auto refresh on save, but that had some issues. So I have a separate hotkey for it. Why would you need it? It is for if you add some files from somewhere else, maybe you downloaded something on your browser, then you would need to refresh to see the new files. The strange benefit of this is that if you don't refresh, you won't see those files, which might actually be preferable. Say you're downloading anime, and there are a lot of like temporary files that aren't episodes yet. I won't see them until I press Alt-D, at which point maybe they have all finished downloading and they're just normal episodes. There may be a workaround to this, and I think there is a way to refresh every blank seconds, something of that sort, but I haven't figured it out. The mappings that I used to go up and forward, let's go to .files. So if I go into a directory, I go into a directory. Makes sense. But if I go into a file, I go into a file. And this command will specifically and only and always open the file in VOD, or at least will try to. Yeah, okay, so this is the same window. What do I mean by try to? Let's go back to YouTube and try to open this in, remember, VOD. Damn, kind of nothing is happening. Let me try again. Damn. Strange. Why is it not loading? Maybe a different file? Oh, whoops. Wait, why am I not moving? Huh. Okay, let me try to close this. Wait, that used to not work. Regardless, so basically, it breaks. If you try to open a file like WebVim that you cannot open in NeoVim, I think, if you try to open it in NeoVim, it will hang. It will not let you do anything else. So be mindful of that. How do we then... Oh wait, we actually haven't gotten to that yet. So yeah, we have parent and select to go up and forward. You have actions close, which is pretty neat, because say I open oil here, if I close it, I only close oil, I don't close the whole window / buffer like it usually is. So let me open some other file. Now I have like 2 files at least, and let me open oil. So my remap, capital K or Shift K, closes oil. If I press it again, I close the buffer, therefore closing my entire NeoVim instance. Let's reopen it. Yeah. So it's pretty neat. You can make a mapping that specifically closes oil, making it like very safe to close in a way. Makes you not have to go somewhere to close it. Next up, similar to Telescope, NeoTree, I'm sure NerdTree, and other places, they're in some way or fashion file related. You can make mappings to open a file in a vertical split, in a normal split, add it to quick fix list, or send it to quick fix list. And by the way, if you don't know much about quick fix list, holy shit, it is amazing. It is very fucking useful. Definitely discover it. You can do so by... What's the difference here? Oh, there's no difference because they're in the same. Yeah, so you can do H for help, quick fix, and you will get here. Read this. It might like take a few minutes to read through this, but it's worth it to like find a few commands that will actually be useful here. I'm gonna actually get into more detail about quick fix a bit later. I'm not sure though. So quick fix list, amazing. So remember, you have those hotkeys. This one I've actually already used. So when you open oil, by default, it will open the directory that the file that you're currently looking at is in. I was just looking at oil.lua, you can see here. So it will open plugins, and when I open it, we are indeed in plugins. Conveniently also looking at oil.lua. So an operation that you can do, which I used to do in VS Code actually kind of frequently, now that I remember, is that I open this, I go to the previous file or next file, open it, quickly look at it, Notice how this is like pretty sleek. I love that. Oh, and yeah, by the way, it shouldn't really come as a surprise, but to me it still does. The fact that relative movement works here. I can just say, oh, go like 4 up. And it's not like a special rule or anything. This is just a buffer that just has some text. It just happens to have some more meaning to it. So everything that you usually can do, you can do here. And it's so good. Right, so it usually opens add the file that you currently have open. But if we look at my current working directory, it is .files rather than plugins. So to go to my current working directory instead of the plugins one, I have a mapping for it. And boom, now we are at .files, where my current working directory is. And you know what this means? It means that Oil has a pretty strong capability for being my main file manager. And that capability is much, much fucking stronger than Ranger has, in my experience at least, because I have a certain telescope plugin called the Zoxide plugin that takes all of the places that I've been at in Zoxide. So I can just say, oh, go to Ute, and that expands to YouTube because that's the entry with the biggest score. And then I press enter, and let's quit Oil to go look at our current working directory. We indeed jump there. You know what this means? Now when I open fucking Oil and do the go to current working directory, it actually recognizes the new different current working directory and goes there. So my movement across directories is very fast and very simple. It is truly incredible. And then I can just do my special mapping to go specifically to .files. Or I guess I could do this, which is almost equally as fast. And then go back. It's very fast and very, like, powerful. I love it a lot. Like, a lot. You know what this extra means? What do I not have? Let's go to other and look what I have here. I don't have, oh, interesting. Let's this clone this repository for ESA, a program that I started using recently. And actually, this is abstracted away from you. I'm sorry about that. What happened here, besides the clone, yeah, first of all, we cloned the as a repo with depth 1 so that it takes less to actually download it. But then an important thing that happened is that we actually went to this directory. You know what this means? It is now stored in Zoxide, and once I go to my this is old and should be closed. Oh, interesting. I had multiple open. Yeah. Once I go to my NeoVim instance, without updating it. I didn't need to update it. I didn't need to do anything. I just search for the new place in Zoxide, which is ESA. I go there, and now when I update my current working directory, I am there. I was able to jump to the new place and open it with oil incredibly quickly, and now I can go on to look at the code. Like, oh, what's the output like? Sure, fucking icons, doesn't really matter. You know? And then, I don't know. Actually, I do. I could very easily go ahead and change this Unicode to something else to use a different fucking icon. Then recompile, which is very simple in Rust. It's just cargo build release like this. What? Why is it not recognizing? Oh, that's so strange. What? Huh? My shell tripped out. That's strange. That's super wild. What? What happened? That's usually not an issue. Boom, so you just build it, and now I have my own binary that I recompile with my own features, for example. The praise here isn't really about Rust. What I mean to say is that going ahead to ad hoc discover some sort of project is way faster and simpler now. All you need to have is the link, you quickly clone it, go to it with Zoxide, then go to it here, and you can go ahead and look at the project with a file manager. And then, because Telescope is also amazing, you can look at it like this. So it is just so good. It is incredibly fucking good. I haven't talked about that yet, and it's not time yet. Boom. So this mapping is very, very important. Then we have this one. So currently, my current working directory is just .files, but I open here. If I press the same key map again, but here, when we close, we see our current working directory update. So we can very easily CD into different directories as well, which is really, really neat, because you can differentiate it in Telescope, and I do. Here I search for files in my current working directory, and this will search for files in the repo, in the Git repo. Then you can change how they are sorted. This feature is a bit kinda annoying because you have to type in a number, then enter, and then another number, and then also enter. I wish it was like kinda neater, but it isn't. It's like good enough. This we already talked about. Thinking of the order of how I should talk about it. Okay, let's start with this. So I mentioned how if you try to open an unopenable file with it. It just hangs. I assume that's like a known bug. It would be strange if it wasn't. But I probably should at least check. And if not, start an issue or something. Possibly fix it, even? I don't know. Okay, regardless. So, how do we handle with this? Obviously, I don't really care to open a WebM file in NeoVim. That's a video file. I want to open it in my player so that I can watch the actual video. That is exactly what this mapping is for. Instead of opening the thing that you're currently looking at in NeoVim, it opens it with whatever XDG open decides to open it with. So I press it, and boom, opens it in MPV, in my case. Cool. Then this is, I think, like the other part of the strength of Oil, together with this one. GY, or at least I decided it to be GY, is now an operator to copy the current file's path. If we look at my clipboard, if you look at my clipboard here, you can see that I kind of expected it to update. That's kind of unfortunate that it doesn't, but trust me, it has the full file path of the file that it was just had under my cursor. The extra cool thing about it is that it takes a register. So you can do something like, save to the register O, GY. We look at register O, and it now has that. Or to the system register, GY, and now it is in my clipboard. Which is really powerful once again, because what that means is the permissions issue that I talked about, that I kind of don't want to change 3 separate characters. Hello. I wonder the context to these messages. So now the solution that I can have is either using my global runner that uses my shell, and then I just fucking enter the file path. I should have quoted it also, to be fair, like chmod plus x, like this, and blammo. Now I can chmod this file. I don't think we should chmod a video file, but we could. Nobody's stopping us, I think. Or just use the default way of doing it in NeoVim to call a shell command from within NeoVim. Same exact thing. But the thing about this is that if we do it within here, we don't need to copy it to our system clipboard. There's no need. We just say GY and then chmod plus x, and we enter what's in our default register. It's as simple as that. And blammo, you can do anything that you want to do on the file, and that's it. That's literally it. So the fact that Oil doesn't necessarily have more features or like a richer interface to do more things with files, it doesn't matter, because it actually plays into how NeoVim is structured in having simple parts. They're not exactly simple, but having parts that work together in a very natural and obvious way. So rather than it having its own feature of, oh, chmod the file or do something specific with the file. It's like, no, just you can have the path and do whatever you want with it. It makes a lot of sense. Yeah. What is next? Default file explorer. So this setting is pretty important in actually making Oil.nvim into an actual file explorer, because did you know that you can actually you can pass a directory to NeoVim to open it in, by default, netrw. But with this setting, you can make Oil open directories passed to NeoVim instead of netrw. So you can open things in Oil from within your command line, which is, as many other things in this plugin, very big, huge, humongous even. You know what this means? This means that if I NeoVim fucking videos, it's not supposed to work because it doesn't have a session to open NeoVim in. But that's a whole different question. But effectively, if you do something like, open Alacrity first, or overall your terminal emulator, there open NeoVim with this directory passed to it, you just made a file explorer, because it can open as its own window with some folder being opened for you. Amazingly, you can also add them together. First, use Z to go to a directory that you want. Let's go to YouTube. And then Alacrity -e NeoVim, and just pass dot to mean the current directory. And we got to YouTube. How? Why? Because we first jumped to YouTube, and now you can see this being the case, because we are in the YouTube directory, and we opened it in a new window. So combining all of this, you turn a file looker plugin for NeoVim into a full-blown file manager that I straight up just use now. I don't have Ranger anymore, because this is not just enough, this is better. It is fucking better. Better in how nice it aligns with my already working config, and the fact that it benefits from any further NeoVim config that I do. If I install a plugin that actually that's like a real plugin that I want to look into, called Title Case something, effectively takes a motion and title cases all the words within that motion. So for example, if this was lowercase, I could like title case, oops, I could like title case till dot, and it would rename the file. The thing about it is that I might have installed that plugin because it's actually useful somewhere else, maybe for Markdown or whatever else it might be. But then, by chance, oh yeah, now I can use the same exact thing in my file manager. It is very stretchy and gives you a lot of power without needing to think further about it, without needing to think how to bring this power into my file manager. It's already built in a way. So that is why it's important. Now, how do I actually make it work? So far, it's not like the full solution. I'll still show it. Let's look at, oops, let's look at oil. This. So I have this function, this fish function, that if I provided a directory to it, it will open there. Yeah. It will go to there using Zoxide. Then if I passed nothing else, it will open it in NVim, but if I pass something, it will open it in NVim also, but in its own window. You saw this some minutes ago when I tried to open oil, but it didn't work. So let's try to do this again with this new information. I do oil. Let's mix it up so I don't always open the same place. Let's open dot files, sure. Nothing happens because it tried to open NVim, but it didn't have an interactive session, therefore it died out. It cannot open it. But if I do oil.f, f is just, it doesn't matter if it's f or not. All that matters is that there is a third argument, and f is just easy to press. It can be anything, really. Now it gets opened in a new window. I think what I want to do instead is have two different functions that are distinct. One opens in a new window and another doesn't. I think that's a bit of a better approach than an argument. Not for like a program, but for shell usability, I think it is. It doesn't really matter, it's not like a huge deal. But yeah, by having this shell function, I can use it in my shell command runner to open it anywhere. I mean, also, you can make a desktop file for this and then use your desktop file picker to open oil, but then you wouldn't have a way to specify the path to it. Or maybe, I guess you could. Oh yeah, you probably could. In some way or fashion. And then blammo, you could use it like that. Yeah, so isn't it amazing? I'm a really big fan of this plugin. I think it might be my #1 favorite plugin. And the second one is LuaSnip. I already talked about LuaSnip on stream before, but there are a few new things that I learned, I think. They're kind of minor and I don't remember them. But basically, LuaSnip is also incredible. It is amazing. So yeah, if you're looking for a terminal-based file manager and you use NeoVim, Oil is your friend. Which sounds kind of funny, but it is true. It is like amazing. I'm so glad I found it. So, thank you for watching. I hope you liked the stream, and I'm gonna